Hi, my name is Bingo Bob, and in this video, I decided to look back at throwing the previous sets of Celestials that come out over the past year or so, and there aren't many, there's like 3, 4, but the one that came to mind was Frostfall. It said that had so much hype leading up to its release, but weirdly went into obscurity after Daybreak came out. Which, to be fair, Daybreak came out like a half month later directly after Frostfall, but I think the reason the set was so hyped up compared to other sets like Moonrise or Daybreak is because it's the first new set with actual new cards. Because for context, we were stuck with the same cards for the first year or two of Celestials, because Kickstarter and First Edition were functionally the same cards. Alongside Daybreak, I was shining it. This set also felt pretty underwhelming when it came out, even looking back now. But I can't just say the set was bad without saying why, so I wanted to review the set and find out why it was so underwhelming. Next, we gotta look at the 4 key elements of the set to review. First, we gotta talk about the 2 star decks that were introduced in the set. Secondly, we'll also talk about how good the cards were at the time, and how good they are now, and how much the current amount is affected by the set. Thirdly, we gotta look at the quality of the physical product, the cards, and all the stuff like that. And lastly, I'll look at the main gimmick of the set. Think of foretelling for Daybreak or suppressing for Moonrise, and whether or not it was good or bad. So let's discuss and see why Frostfall was good or bad, or does it hold up today. So, with all that being said, let's first look at the 2 star decks of the set, Imperawatt and Cryoscorch, and I'm going to be judging the decks off the cards in the card list, and I won't be taking into consideration the idea of cards being changed, so they can be judged fairly. If you were to look at the card list for each of these decks, one is clearly better than the other, and that one being Imperawatt. Okay, on to the next point. Just kidding, obviously. Cryoscorch is 10 times better than Imperawatt for many reasons, one being the strategy going into Cryoscorch is pretty easy and intuitive compared to Imperawatt, and Penguwatt is really garbage because the Ascension effect requires you to disenchant on your field, which doesn't sound bad, but Imperawatt's effect wants you to have a lot of spirits on board, so it's going to be the best that can be when it has the most spirits, and disenchanting just nerfs that entirely. And Imperawatt has the effect that takes so much commitment with probably multiple divine runes just for it to be negated, and then boom, you waste all the spirits and you aren't clearing any boards. And in the Imperawatt deck, this isn't the main strategy itself, but the cards in it in general are mostly from First Edition. There aren't many unique Frostfall cards in the Imperawatt starter deck compared to the Cryoscorch, which has a lot more newer Frostfall cards. And for some reason, just to nerf Imperawatt even more, the counter runes in the deck are very questionable. One of those being a new counter rune, which is Divine Blessing. I can understand why you put new counter runes in the deck as a new Frostfall card, as it's a new deck, new stuff like that. But this card requires you to disenchant, going against Imperawatt's effect. And what is Divine Blessing going to be used for? Mostly to negate cards like Resting or Earthquake, which are going to be used on your big boss monsters, which would require you to disenchant, and you're not, it's just all against Imperawatt in this deck. And the counter runes in general are just very little compared to the Cryoscorch starter deck, which has a little bit more and has Gorgon, so it's automatically better. Also has Tsunami and one Chains of Prometheus, not 2, which is weird, but it's better in general. But Imperawatt is the one with the most problems, and Cryoscorch isn't really that bad. Cryoscorch on its own can be a pretty good starter deck to just get and play, while Imperawatt is pretty garbage, absolute garbage. Next, we'll look at how good the cards were in the set. And are there a good amount of cards in the set that are used in the current meta just like base set? Well, unfortunately no. Long story short, most of the cards in the set aren't very good. But not to say there aren't any good cards in the set. There still is, like cards like Lavalith, Moss Station, some other runes like Race to the Top, Stroke the Forge, or Rise from the Depths. There's also a lot of self-mill cards that are good for Blistrix that got introduced in the set. And alongside that, More Frost is also a strategy that everyone thought was going to be crazy, but ended up not being very good at the time. But now, with the introduction of cards like More Frost Bat and More Frost Scorpio, More Frost is actually a really good strategy in the Moonrise meta. But like I said, Frostfall has a couple pretty bad cards. Some examples of this would be cards like Permafrog, Ricerage, or Corbrium, which are just probably the top 3 worst cards in Celestials, and the set with the title of Worst Cards in Celestials is not a good title to have. And the meta at the time didn't really change much from base set. At the time, it was Earth Beatdown, Thunder Nexus, and Fives, which is the same as first edition. But there were two decks that competed in the meta, which were Cryoling Reanimator with Infrostix, and Wakagon, which did pretty good, and are still pretty decent decks. But Cryoling Reanimator, in my opinion, is just boring due to it just being really simple. The quality of the cards in the set were actually pretty good. The feel of the cards are more like first edition and Shattered Stars, rather than the super weird glossy feeling that Kickstarter, Daybreak, and Moonrise had, which I'm not the biggest fan of, even though it makes the cards feel thicker. This set is also the first to include packs in the Star decks, which is a nice addition when it makes going back and rebuying them more worthwhile compared to the base set, which has no packs. There are also some sour elements of the quality in this set, like the Imperawatt X out of 10 4 Stellar that was originally supposed to belong to Shattered Stars month 4 Frost, but because Frost Shattered Stars and Frost Fall came out near the same time, there was a mix-up. The Imperawatt ended up in the Frost Fall booster boxes instead. And speaking of Frost Fall booster boxes, at the time of recording this, the X out of 10 4 Cryo Scorch box topper has still not been found. Not a single one. Even 2 sets later, this card has not been found. And it's baffling to me that this card hasn't been found, but Posthumous 1 out of 10 X out of 10 Stellar 4 has been found day 1. And guess who found that X out of 10? Sunflower on the Illustrious Realm channel. Go check that out. It's on my channel front page. It's linked there. Go check out the channel. Anyways, back to the video. But besides those 2 problems, the quality isn't really that bad, and I actually really liked it. This is a small section, but I thought it was still worth mentioning. Like most sets of Celestials, there's a gimmick. An example of this would be something like Foretelling in Daybreak or Suppressing in Moonrise. And for Frostfall, the gimmick was everything to do with the Underworld. Kaon, the Frost Divine Rune, supported this gimmick, and other cards like Neanderswath and Wakagon, those strategies have something working with the Underworld. But this gimmick is pretty cool and works pretty good in self-mill, and isn't really that built upon after this set. I mean, it is. I don't know, it was a cool gimmick. It was kind of just alright, all around. It isn't kind of like luck-based, like Foretelling and Suppressing is something that has existed before Lunar, but is really, supported with the new Lunar cards. A lot of Lunar cards have something to do with Suppressing, like Dense Fogs, cards like that, and Artemis, and Posthumous, stuff like that. But that was my crap review of Frostfall. So, was Frostfall good? Well, it's okay. It's sort of forgettable in certain aspects, like with a lot of cards just being absolute dog water, but there are some good staples, and the quality was good with a few quirks, but it was all around pretty good. And the starter decks were, one of them was good, the other one was just hindered by the cards in the actual starter deck, but Imperawatt as a boss monster card isn't that bad. But I would love to hear your opinion in the comments if you disagree with anything I said in this video. But with all that being said, I would appreciate if you liked enchanted that like button and disenchanted that sub button alongside expending to change the position of that notification bell. I'm so sorry, but anyways, I'll catch you on the next video. See ya.